Okay, we are back. And so a lawsuit has been filed in the state of New Mexico against Alec Baldwin and the producers of the film Rust. This is in regards to the accidental shooting death of the cinematographer. And I've read this article that it was put out today, but it also attached a video of what the attorneys are saying happened. It's an animation, a simulation of what has happened, and I want to take a look and see what they feel happened. So let's switch over. We're going to hit play. Warning, some viewers may find the following video disturbing. This animation reflects factual allegations in the complaint made by the Hutchins family regarding the death of Helena Hutchins, and it's based on the available information. Wow, somebody spent some money on this.
The morning that Helena Hutchins was shot and killed, tensions among the crew and cast regarding safety on the Rust set had boiled over. The crew had warned the production that the set was super unsafe and that safety was a massive issue. After the warning of the unsafe production, the workers that had complained quit in protest of the safety conditions. The producers directed the super unsafe production to continue. This is the story of what happened. Mr. Baldwin and the Rust crew and cast committed major breaches of industry safety protocols. Mr. Baldwin and his production crew were performing a lineup. A lineup is used to confirm where to locate and angle the camera. Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin to use a replica or rubber prop gun whenever possible. It was unnecessary for Mr. Baldwin to use a revolver for the lineup. Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin, as a producer and lead actor, to accept the revolver directly from or in the presence of the production's armorer. Mr. Baldwin did not accept the revolver from the armorer. The armorer was not even in the same room. Mr. Baldwin allowed Mr. Halls, the first assistant director, to confirm for him the deadly weapon was safe. Mr. Halls was not qualified in weapons safety. Mr. Halls did not look at every round in the revolver's cylinder. Industry standards required that Mr. Baldwin personally perform or observe a visual inspection of the revolver to confirm it contained no live rounds.
That's industry standard.
Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin to be trained and qualified in safe handling and proper firing procedures before accepting the revolver. Mr. Baldwin refused weapons training on how to perform a cross draw, the type of gun draw he was about to perform in the church. The first rule for safety with firearms on
That's the first time I've heard that. I don't know about you, but refusing training on a cross draw, that's interesting.
a production set required Mr. Baldwin to treat all firearms as if they were loaded and refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone. The industry standard.
That is true. You assume that every firearm on set is a live weapon that can kill someone, and you have to treat it with that kind of respect. That's true.
Required Mr. Baldwin to remember that any person or object at which he points a firearm could be destroyed. Mr. Baldwin aimed the revolver at his cast and crew within a dangerous distance. The cast and crew were only 4 feet away from Mr. Baldwin's weapon. Wow. Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin to ensure any crew in the line of fire had protective glass or other personal protective equipment. Industry standards required remote operation of the camera if Mr. Baldwin ever aimed the gun at the camera.
Now, this is a really good
When you shake a dummy round, you hear a BB rattle. When you shake a live bullet, you do not hear anything.
Anything, because it's packed with gunpowder.
So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
Wow.
There's definitely 2 deliberate acts that were required there. He had to cock the gun and he had to press the trigger. If he had his finger on the trigger, here and he's pressing it, he may not be aware that he's pressed the trigger. Then he pulls the hammer back,
right,
and then he releases it, and then the gun fires.
This is so sad. Wow. Wow. Well, that was a very eye-opening video. Full disclosure, I worked on a movie with Alec Baldwin years ago. I will say, in my experience with working on a movie with Alec Baldwin, he never left his trailer. He even would have the door open and rehearsing lines in the mirror. He was not very involved in the day-to-day operations of that particular film, but he also wasn't a producer, and it wasn't his film. He was acting in another person's film. So my experience when I've worked with actors that are of that kind of a caliber in their career, they're not much involved, even if they are producing the project in name only or bringing finances to it. And I'm not defending Alec here. I just want to make that clear. But I am saying that they don't deal with a lot of the, like it talked about the 15 things that were broken. They don't deal with a lot of those things. The armorer, who should have been there, this young 24-year-old woman, who this is her second movie, dropped the ball big time. I don't care how you slice it. People want to throw everything on Alec. Fine. Look, the reason movies like this are bonded and have insurance is if there's an accident and there's lawsuits, in the end, Alec, no matter how this was ever going to shake out, was going to do it. He probably feels right to take care of that family. They sued because those are the steps that you have to take in these processes. You lawyer up. No matter what accident, if you were working at McDonald's and coffee fell and burned you, or you're doing it, doesn't matter what occupation you have. If you have an accident on the premises, you lawyer up, and workman's comp is involved and all sorts of stuff like that. So, obviously whoever they contracted to do this animation, this is their take on it based on the things that they have heard from the witnesses they've interviewed. And also, it's meant to have that ominous music in there, the breathing, when the person collapsed on the floor, the cinematographer, Helena, and it's meant to evoke a reaction. Maybe this video coming out wasn't a good idea because it could affect the jury, although whoever is pulled in, because they said that the trial might be a year and a half down the road on this. The whole thing is completely tragic, absolutely tragic, should not have happened whatsoever. But, I get it. Alec Baldwin's the star. Alec Baldwin's producing the movie. I don't think he even knew about the complaints. So when you're an actor and you're that big, they don't tell you all that stuff because they want you to think that the production's going smoothly. So they don't tell him that there's complaints or that the crew is in hotels, an hour outside of town and have to drive an hour in, then work a 14-hour day, then an hour back. So they're pulling a 16-hour day. And that they had complained that for safety reasons, they wanted a hotel closer, but because of whoever's producing it, the line producer, the UPM, whoever, they had made decisions to go with a cheaper hotel and not put people in the hotels in New Mexico or right close to where the location was, because the price of the hotels were more expensive than putting them out in the boonies and having them drive in. These are things that happen on films all the time. So don't think that these things don't happen. There's always penny pinching that goes along, but you do it within the scope of being safe. But there are productions where people do this kind of crap, and it's very dangerous, especially for even like Teamsters that drive at night and they fall asleep at the wheel, or even like a camera department leaving after they've been on set all day and they got to drive home and they've worked a 15-hour day and they're sleepy. It happens. I mean, these things happen. These accidents happen on sets. But there's more blame here, I feel, on my personal opinion of the production supervisor, whoever the UPM was. If this was DGA, I don't know. I didn't look into it yet. If if Alec felt comfortable with the assistant director handing him a cold gun, then he just assumed it was a cold gun. They don't think about those details like, regulation says a plastic gun has to be brought in, or a rubber gun, or this, that the armorer should have been there. If the armorer was there, the armorer probably would have given him a different type of weapon. Again, like there was a chain reaction of events here. And I just think that like everyone wants Alec Baldwin to go down on this. I don't think he will, but I feel like the armorer and probably the production people who were in the cost-cutting mode of not taking care of the crew and the ones that walked because of safety issues. I mean, if you had an armorer that had 2 discharges like that already prior to this thing, normally on a normal show, a normal movie or television show that I've worked on, they would have fired her after the first mishap. You don't get a second shot at that. I worked on a series where there was an accidental discharge of a firearm, but it was a blank gun and it wasn't even supposed to be playing that day. It was on a cart, and an actor decided to go over, a very new actor who this was his big break on a big network television show. The only thing he had done prior was like a short film. And he thought it would be funny behind people's back to pick up a prop gun, and it went off on a day when even on the call sheet, there was no gunfire. It was all talking heads, and everyone on set freaked out. Well, they fired the entire prop department. They fired everybody that day, even the assistant director who was in charge, because it was his responsibility to make sure that that wasn't going on. So I've worked on shows where when that happens once, you are gone, and that whole department is gone. Props all the way down the board. Boom, fired. Bring in a whole new team. That's how it's supposed to be done. So there was a lot of screw ups here before it gets to the actor who's just sitting in his trailer, learning his lines, looking in the mirror, and he comes on set and they hand him a gun and they say, we want you to point it this way towards, this way. And yeah, I mean, if he was holding on to that trigger back when he cocked it, as soon as he let that go, that thing was going to go because the trigger was already in the back position. And he wasn't educated enough on that. So yes, there was a problem there. And it is a problem if he did refuse that training. That was the first time I'd heard that throughout this entire process, is that he refused training on a cross draw. Regardless if he refused that training on the cross draw, where the hell was the armorer? She should have been standing right there on set. What do you guys think of this video? Let's talk about it in the comment section. See you on the next one.